Andrew Jackson starts American populism. That's what we'll talk about. This is our third video in a row about Andrew Jackson on our Saturday videos, because he was such a multifaceted character. The first video was how when he got elected president, he really brought the frontier, the Appalachian frontier, Tennessee and westward, into the United States and offset the dominance of the East Coast. The second was how he set up the Democratic Party and believed to the victor belongs the spoils, so that he tamed the federal bureaucracy and made it responsible to the democracy, something that's never happened in Europe. In Europe, the civil service runs everything. But because of the precedent set by Jackson in the United States, it doesn't, although it's doing more of it. What I want to talk about today is how Jackson invented the idea of economic populism. At the time when Jefferson and Hamilton were fighting, Hamilton wanted a Bank of the United States that would get all federal deposits and would be kind of like the Federal Reserve Board. And Jefferson fought it tooth and nail, claiming it would create an economic oligarchy and elite, and he lost. The bank was established, Washington supported it, and it took effect. It was renewed in the early years of the Madison administration because he needed a bank to be able to fund the War of 1812. But then it came up for renewal again while Andrew Jackson was president. And he said, I am not going to permit this elitist institution to empower a few people to run the whole national economy. Essentially was the precursor of the Federal Reserve Board. And he said, we are not going to do that. We will not have a federally chartered national bank. And Nicholas Biddle, who was a Wall Street type and looked the part, who was the head of the bank, fought like crazy on it. Biddle went around making loans, in quotes, to the members of the House and the Senate, Daniel Webster among them, to persuade them to back the bank. And when Jackson was pushing for the elimination of the bank, he would say, if the bank's eliminated, we're going to withdraw this loan from you and from your community and from your business, and you'll all be thrown out of work. But despite those tactics, Jackson prevailed, and he killed the Bank of the United States. The result? An unmitigated total disaster. Because there was no central bank, each of the states set up their own banks, and the state banks began to print currency. And nobody knew what was worth anything. Trade and commerce was slowed down because nobody knew if they could accept the money. And ultimately, everybody wanted gold or silver because they couldn't trust any of the money issued by these state banks. The result was a mammoth recession and depression in the late 1830s and the early 1840s. When Lincoln came in, he printed greenbacks for the Civil War, but then he set up a Bank of the United States that remained in business straight through until the Federal Reserve Board was set up and eventually took its place. But it was Jackson who founded the notion of the big people versus the little people in the economy. The Eastern establishment, Wall Street, and the average person, Main Street, the small businessman, the farmer, the artisan. It was the precursor, really, of both the Republican economic populism of being pro-small business and Obama's phony economic populism of railing against the bankers who pay for his campaign. So thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next week.